SummerSlam is coming up so quickly this summer, Rich. And it feels wrong. Like it should be later in the month. We already need to start talking about it, and it's mid-July. But the lineup is taking shape. And we talked last week about whether SummerSlam is going to be like an ensemble show. You know, how was it shaping worthy of kind of the number 2 show of the year for WWE? Royal Rumble's kind of, you know, people would say that is, but that's always kind of a specialty show because it's built around the single match. So right now, I think the lineup is looking pretty good, but I'd also say they have some work to do, and we need some official announcements on certain things. So I'll ask you in the macro, and then we'll get into the specifics. Just what's your kind of gut feeling about the job they're doing right now and how things are coming together with, at this point, only 3 official announced matches, but we're going to piece together probably 3, 4, 5 more.
Looking at what they have so far, it's Gunther, Priest, it's Nia Jax, Bayley, Cody, and Solo Sikoa. Did I miss anything? Oh, Liv and Rhea. So we got four matches, 4 title matches, and I look at this as it's going to be an ensemble show, but since it's one of their hallmarks, especially SummerSlam, it's an ensemble show that's going to feature a lot of stuff we don't see yet. And so one of the first things I think they needed to do was kind of set the stage for Gunther and Damian Priest, which they did quite well on Monday. You needed to have Priest dig into something a little deeper. And Gunther, I was talking to Dan Keister about this last night before I fell asleep. I thought that the promo video was a lot better than the Triple H Redux interview that was done in person between Damian and Gunther, where Gunther saying, we want to make sure you people don't have the belt, and you were poor because your parents were too weak to pull themselves out by their bootstraps. Like, this level of Gunther, like, that's the austerity Gunther was not one I saw coming. But that video where he talked about, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I heard it differently. I thought he was saying, what I heard is Gunther saying, your parents didn't find you worthy of giving shelter to and encouragement to. And, you know, basically you're not a plant worth watering. And so to me, I thought it was like wonderful in the sense that I've been wanting to cheer Gunther. And when he went there, it just sounded like a nasty thing to say about somebody who dealt with, you know, economic hardships and homelessness and trying to find himself. Gunther is basically what I heard Gunther say is, the reason that I lived a privileged life and upbringing and got every opportunity is because my parents saw greatness in me early. And you're, you know, basically saying you're barely a late bloomer.
Yeah, it was tough. I greatly, though, enjoyed that promo package because talking about, I heard you on the report, talking about titles mean more than dreams. Because what is a dream but an empty wish? Like, every person who's got to hang in their kitty or an affirmation of some sort over their like fireplace is like stepping on rakes and like just so angry right now because Gunther's like, why do you dream? You don't need, just make it happen. Look at me.
And you know, he was talking about NXT, and WWE has built NXT around wrestlers whose dream it is to be a WWE superstar. That's the core genesis of the marketing of the brand. It's not, here's great athletes who want to prove that they're the best pro wrestlers at beating each other up and scoring pinfalls or submissions. NXT is built around, and I think Gunther was making fun of that reality, which is it's a bunch of people sitting around going, my dream is to be a superstar. And Gunther's whole thing is, this ring is sacred, and I want to kick ass and win titles and have historically significant title reigns. To me, that's very, I mean, it's kind of babyface. I mean, I kind of popped for it because I mean, you and I have watched wrestling long enough where when, you know, like Mick Foley I think he coined WrestleMania moment. And then all of a sudden there was this whole thing of like, you know, I think of Sasha Banks as somebody who's like, oh, just my dream to be a superstar. Before that, all wrestlers did is talk about wanting to beat people up and win titles. And suddenly it was about being a star on the brand. And I haven't liked that. And I think it's totally in character for Gunther to mock that and be like, I'm looking around at people who just want to be like famous under a WWE banner, whereas I just want to kick ass and win titles. So to me, I fought for that, but I think he needed to go he needed to actually steer towards being a jerk, which then he ultimately did.
Yeah, and I like that he is, like, when you look at Gunther's story, in fact, behind me in this room, I have a Ring Kampf towel I bought off of him back when I went to New Orleans and watched him and PCO destroy each other. Like, if you look at a picture of that man, and I think Kevin Nash put it up, if you look at a picture of him back then, or even when he was, as Will Cooling called him, Baby Huey Gunther, and you compare him to now, you look at Punishment Martinez and you compare him to what Damian Priest looks like. These guys both put their bodies through massive transformations to become who they are. But with Gunther, he's saying, not only did I do that, but I earned it. I deserved it. You just kind of were there. And it's like, wow.
Yep. So I want to get to the big picture of it, but I'll say this about this match. If you would have said a few months ago, oh yeah, Gunther might be winning his first World Heavyweight title in WWE against Damian Priest, then I'd be like, well, that's weird. 2 heels. Priest isn't a to beat. You talk about that video package and Gunther's presentation. I just think it's been stellar, and I think we saw the obviously the beginning of, or the continuation of, I would argue, of Damian Priest solidifying himself as a likable stand-up guy that you want to root for. I think they're taking us on a journey, and by the time we get to SummerSlam, whatever happens in that match, and maybe Gunther doesn't beat Priest on the first try, I still would bet on that, but got the event afterwards in Germany. I think this is going to feel like a bigger match than we could imagine 2 months ago.
Yeah. And I think it's big, in fact, because we had counterintuitively the time off where Gunther wasn't there. It wasn't just him lurking and cutting nothing promos in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah. He just disappeared, came back, won King of the Ring, established himself, and that was great for him. And I think the strong roster they currently have allowed that to happen. You marry up, like I'm sure one of the matches we'll talk about is SummerSlam. You marry up a Sami Zayn with anybody on the roster. You have an ascendant talent like Braun Breaker. You have the development of the Wyatt Six. Like, you have so many different boys you can play with, plays you can call in your playbook. And the bread and butter of CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, I just hate you. And just smash that button all the day. And of course, the Three's Company that we talked about before, between Mommy, Daddy, and Liv, which probably is going to be a TV show coming to CW once NXT moves over. It's just rife with great opportunities for them to kind of move wrestlers. And we talk about that with AEW. We talk about it with WWE. The more you can make the wrestlers feel like stars, Gunther's made himself appear to be a star. There's so many wrestlers recently in WWE and in AEW that have set themselves up to be seen as stars instead of just players in a play.
So Gunther Priest is exceeding expectations. I think the other men's world title match, Cody and Solo, they've got some work to do, because right now I think there's more excitement over Jacob Fatu than there is over Solo Sikoa as a wrestler and as a personality, and frankly as a threat to Cody. And that's, I think, potentially one of the weak points in the SummerSlam lineup, is it doesn't feel as if Cody really is that there's any threat of him losing the title. Now, maybe they change that, and maybe it doesn't matter because people are just into the story and people want to see Cody beat a member of the Bloodline and see Solo be put in his place. They got some work to do there. But for 2 men's heavyweight title matches, I think collectively it's suitable for SummerSlam, the 2 of them. Priest, a weak champion, but as we said, they're overachieving in the build. Cody Solo, a weak match, but they also might be a weak challenger for Solo, probably, but they also might overachieve in the build in the next 2 weeks. And I think collectively it hits the threshold it needs to.
Yeah. And when you think about what happened on SmackDown on Friday, I keep going back to what Solo said, and I think it's a microcosm of what's going on right now at the Bloodline 2.0. When he said, "You didn't deserve Roman, you have me now." And a lot of this storyline is that you have him, and he's not quite what Roman is. He has to put the lay on. He has to open up the folder of all the Tongans and Samoans and Polynesians and find the most decrepit and wildest dudes that Roman said never bring them in. And I think that's what's the intrigue going into this match, because if you're saying, as they've repeated over and over, wins and losses have consequences. If he loses to Cody, do the Tongans, do Jacob continue to listen to him? And with no tribal chief and no wise man to kind of massage some of these relationships, Solo's naivete can come back and bite him, because I think, to me, like right now it's Shark Week, or it just ended Shark Week. He doesn't realize he's swimming with sharks. He thinks that these are guys that are just going to go along. They're following his lead. And introducing Jacob has been the force multiplier for the Bloodline and its reality and its legitimacy. But I think it's also the force multiplier in how tenuous it is for him to be the tribal chief. Because we see Jacob And I haven't seen in years a wrestler on the main roster show up and have like 3 appearances, and everyone wants to see him.
Yes.
It's like, I just want to see more.
It's been great. All right, so we'll expand on this because we're getting into a flagship podcast depth on these single topics, but I want to spend our last minute and a half here talking about every other match on the show and how this is stacking up. So we, so Rhea and Liv, and is a big match, obviously, on the show, and then Bayley, Nia Jax, a solid backup for the women's match. So I think Rhea Liv SummerSlam level women's match, and again, it feels ensemble because there's not this obvious match that's going to be at the top of the card. But I think those 2 women's matches, short answer, almost a nod. Yes, those also, because of the build, feel SummerSlam worthy.
Yeah, I think both are worthy. I think Nia Jax, since her return, has definitely rehabilitated her style and, really, to be honest, her career. There may be some gaffes every now and again, but she is seen as a good force. And I think her pairing with Tiffany Stratton allows for then the jeopardy of, if Bayley survives Nia, can she survive both of them in terms of a cash-in? And the jeopardy of, are these friends going to trust each other, or are they frenemies, or what are they? You look at the other side, the SummerSlam, that's a SummerSlam match right there. You have drama, you have a good storyline, you have what should be a decent match, and the peril of whose side is Dominic on, whose side is Rhea on, because who's playing whom. And yeah, so I think that's good. And then
if they get to Drew and Punk, that might be the main reason people watch this show. But what you just said, Dominic and whose side is he on, and that drama is going to be a close contender, which is weird to say when Cody's defending a title. Gunther's going after his first world title, but that's huge. And then a third one, and when we talk about ensemble, if they execute this, the Wyatt Six threesome against Gable and the Creeds, and seeing them in the ring for the first time doing their act, that is big. And you mentioned briefly Sammy and Breaker. That's a good rematch if they get there, and it seems like they're headed that way. And then on top of that, you could see maybe Orton and KO against the Tongans, DIY against Theory and Waller, maybe Jade and Bianca go after the women's tag team titles. That's a strong undercard. I mean, I do think they're in a place. Again, it's ensemble, and I think if you ask people to rank the top 5 matches, you get a lot of different orders. But I think that's fine. I think this will be a show with, even without that singular consensus top match, there's 3, 4, 5 matches that people are going to be like, oh yeah, this collectively is SummerSlam worthy.
Yeah, I agree. I see this as a sum of its parts, not just here are the 2 things that are going to get me to watch. Because like you said, each person's going to have a different flavor of ice cream that gets them in the ring or gets them in their seat to watch.
So, Rich, you and I are going to pause here. We're wrapping up our tournament hot take, but we will be doing a long-form podcast available to everybody on our podcast feed, not on YouTube, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast. Search Wade Keller, subscribe to the blue logo. That is free. It includes our weekly flagship episode. Rich and I now go and spend another hour or so talking about other things going on in WWE, AEW, Japan, and more. So check that out. Search Wade Keller and subscribe. While you're at it, you'll red logo pop up. That's our post-show feed, the Wade Keller post shows after Raw and SmackDown. Subscribe to that also. That is also free. And I'll throw up a VIP plug if you want to become a VIP member and get all our shows that are just for VIP members, along with ad-free versions of those free shows I talked about. That is a screen you can pause right now and sign up. We'd love to have you as a member. Rich, great doing the 12-minute hot take. We'll talk to you on the other side when we feel less rushed and have an open-ended format to talk about everything else.
Sounds great, Wade.